What would you do if the person you were chasing turned out to be the one who needed you the most? Before anything else happens, hold that question in your mind, because in the next seconds a single choice will flip an entire life upside down. He never saw her coming. One moment Eric Bryan stepped out of his Manhattan tower, the next a small figure brushed past him and vanished into the crowd. His hand shot to his chest. The wallet was gone. His pulse hammered. He looked up in time to see a thin girl in a dark hoodie slipping through bodies like she belonged to the shadows. He lunged forward. The street exploded in motion. Horns, voices, taxis, chaos. But all he saw was that it bouncing ahead of him. She ran hard, fast, desperate. Not the run of a thief enjoying the thrill. The run of someone fleeing something bigger than a stolen wallet. She cut into an alley. He followed, suit sticking to his back, breath burning. She leaped over crates. He slammed against brick, pushed off, kept going. She looked back once and he saw her eyes wide, tired, terrified. Eyes that didn't belong to a criminal. Eyes that belonged to a child. Her sandal snapped. She stumbled. And that was the moment everything changed. She reached a dead end and turned, clutching his wallet against her ribs like it was the last thing she owned. Her chest rose and fell in tiny sharp breaths. She said nothing. "Give it back," he demanded. But even he heard the edge in his voice. The girl didn't move. Didn't blink. "I should call the police," he said. "You know that, right?" Her voice came out thin and cracked. "I wasn't going to keep it." He froze. Not because of her words, but because of the way she said them. She wasn't defiant. She wasn't slick. She was exhausted. "I just needed cash. Not much. My mom is sick. I tried asking people. Nobody listened." She held out the wallet with shaking hands. Eric didn't take it yet. He saw the frayed jeans, the broken sandal, the thin scar on her arm. A kid surviving on instinct. "You think I'm lying," she whispered. "But I wasn't stealing from me." He finally took the wallet. Every card was still inside. Every dollar untouched. This wasn't a thief. Something inside him shifted. "Where do you live?" he asked quietly. She hesitated. "You gonna call the cops?" I said where. After a long silence she turned and walked out of the alley. Eric followed. The city around them changed block by block. Skyscrapers faded into cracked sidewalks and rusted fire escapes. She walked like someone who knew which streets were safe and which ones weren't. She led him through a flaking green door into a suffocating hallway that smelled of damp carpet and trapped heat. They climbed to the third floor. She opened a door marked only by a paper star. Inside, everything was too quiet. A mattress on the floor. A table held up by magazines. And in the corner a woman slumped in a chair, skin pale, breath shallow, sweat shining along her hairline. "Mom," the girl whispered. Her voice broke. "She's been getting worse. Fever started yesterday. We ran out of her pills days ago." Eric felt the ground tilt. This wasn't theft. This was survival. The woman suddenly coughed, body jerking violently before falling still. Too still. "Mom. Mama, wake up. Please wake up." Eric was already dialing. His voice steady, but his hands shaking. Medical emergency. Unconscious woman. Possible cardiac failure. Send a unit now. The girl gripped her mother's hand, whispering through tears, "Please breathe. Please don't leave me." And in that moment, Eric realized the truth he never expected when he started chasing a pickpocket through Manhattan. He hadn't caught a thief. He had collided with a child's last hope. The ambulance arrived fast, but not fast enough for the girl clinging to her mother's lifeless hand. Red lights flooded the peeling walls as paramedics rushed in. One checked vitals, the other opened cables, calling for space. Eric stepped back, but every instinct in him screamed to stay close. The girl's voice broke as they lifted her mother onto the stretcher. "Please be careful. Please. She always wakes up. She always does." Her desperation was raw enough to cut through the noise. Eric followed them down the stairs, the air growing colder with every step. Outside, sirens painted the night red while the girl tried to climb into the ambulance. "Only one of you," a paramedic said gently. She froze, eyes wide, lost. She looked at Eric like he was the only solid thing left in the world. He didn't hesitate. "She's with me. I'll bring her." At the hospital entrance, everything moved in fast forward. The staff recognized Eric. Doors opened. Papers were signed. The girl held a water bottle she didn't drink, fingers white from gripping it. Then the situation turned. 2 NYPD officers appeared at the end of the corridor. The security guard pointed toward Eric. They approached, stiff, formal. "Mr. Bryan," one said. "You reported a stolen wallet earlier. Surveillance matches a juvenile suspect. We need to bring her in for questioning." The girl froze behind him, breath shaking. Eric lifted a hand sharply. "Not now. Her mother's fighting for her life." "Sir, protocol is protocol," the officer replied. "She also has a shoplifting citation from East Harlem. We have reason to believe she is tied to other incidents." The second officer reached for cuffs. The girl stepped back, terrified. Eric's voice hit the hallway like a blade. "You're not putting those on her." "Sir, for her safety and ours," the officer tried again. "She's 11. She's scared. And she just watched her mother collapse. You are not taking her anywhere." A doctor burst from the trauma bay. "Angela is being moved to cardiac ICU. The next hours are critical." The girl crumbled inside. Her cries were silent, the kind that tear deeper than screams. She pressed her forehead to the wall, shaking. Eric stepped in front of her. "If you need to arrest someone, arrest me. But she stays. With me." The officers exchanged a look. After a long beat, they stepped back. "We'll wait. But we're not leaving." "Fine." He turned to the girl, voice quieter. "You're safe. I'm right here." They sat outside the ICU. The room hummed with machines swallowing time, breathing fear. The girl curled into herself, knees tight to her chest. She looked smaller than ever. Eric placed his jacket around her shoulders. She didn't speak, but she let herself lean into the warmth. Hours passed. Doctors came and went. Nothing changed. She finally spoke, voice thin. "Do you think she knows I'm here?" He looked at the ICU door. "Yes. I think she does." Then he stood and walked to the lounge, pulled out his phone, and made a call that would change everything. "I need that medication now. Put it on a plane. Whatever it costs." Because somewhere between the alley and this hallway, the girl had stopped being a stranger and become someone he refused to lose. The call came at 3 a.m., sharp and cold. A nurse stepped out and looked directly at Eric. "They need you in the ICU. It's urgent." The girl jumped to her feet before he could speak, panic already spilling over. In the command center, the doctor's face said everything. "Her heart is failing. Oxygen dropping. We are out of time. The experimental drug you arranged is here, but it has never been used on a patient in her condition. If we proceed, we must stop her heart and restart it. High risk. If we don't, she won't survive the night." The words hit the girl like a blow. She grabbed Eric's sleeve. "You said we still had a chance. Please. Don't let her die." Eric stared at the consent form the doctor held out. His hand hovered. If the mother died because of this drug, that weight would fall on him. He would be the one to face the girl afterward. She didn't want to ask for help anymore, the girl whispered. She said people don't listen unless they have to. But you listened. You came with me. You stayed. Please don't stop now. Her voice cracked. It was the kind of plea that didn't come from hope but from love fighting a losing battle. Eric took a breath and signed. The ICU exploded into motion. Nurses rushed around the mother's pale body, cooling her temperature, preparing machines, counting down. The girl clung to the window, whispering, "Fight. Please fight for me. 3, 2, 1, initiate." The monitor flatlined. A long piercing tone filled the room. The girl covered her ears, crying silently, her body shaking. Clear. The first shock did nothing. Clear. The second shock flickered but faded. Clear. The third shock sent a small tremor through the woman's chest. A beat. Another. We've got a pulse. Stabilizing. The girl fell to her knees, hands covering her face as sobs tore out of her. Eric placed a hand on her back. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. 20 minutes later the doctor approached them. She's responding. She's not out of danger, but she's fighting. When they stepped into the recovery room, the mother's eyes were barely open. Dull. Exhausted. But alive. The girl rushed to her, holding her hand as tears slid silently down her face. "He helped," she whispered. "He didn't leave." Her mother's gaze moved slowly to Eric, soft with fragile recognition. No words. Just a quiet thank you written in her eyes. Outside, the girl curled up on the bench again, worn down to the bone. Eric sat beside her. "She's alive because of you," he said. "Not me." "You brought me," she whispered. The hours that followed felt lighter. Hopeful. Until the doctor returned with the MRI results. The experimental drug saved her heart, but the arrest caused trauma. As of now, she isn't responding from the waist down. The girl froze. Her eyes didn't blink. She just whispered, "She won't walk again." "We don't know yet," the doctor said. "With therapy, maybe. But she'll need help. A lot of it." Later, when they were alone, Eric pulled out a notebook. "I made arrangements. A private rehab center. One of the best. If your mother agrees, you both can stay with me. For as long as you need." She looked at him like the offer was too big to hold. Then slowly, she reached for his hand. Not out of gratitude. Out of trust. A trust he intended to honor. The morning they left the hospital felt unreal. The private van rolled through quiet streets toward Eric's estate, sunlight brushing through the trees like a soft welcome. The girl sat close to her mother, protective, watching every breath. Angela, weak but awake, stared out the window with bewildered eyes. She had survived the impossible, but she didn't understand any of this yet. When they reached the house, she froze. The stone facade, the white steps, the manicured garden, it all looked like another world. "This can't be for us," she whispered. Her voice was thin, almost afraid to believe. Eric stood at the door. "It's home," he said simply. "For as long as you want." Inside, the house smelled of lemon and warm wood. A nurse greeted them and guided Angela's wheelchair down the hall to a sunlit guest suite prepared just for her. Lowered bed, soft blankets, a window facing the garden. It was more comfort than she had seen in years. Dinner that night was quiet. Not heavy, not awkward. Just new. Angela kept insisting she could manage on her own, adjusting her wheelchair, refusing help, trying to keep a dignity life had bruised too often. The girl filled the silence with small stories about the garden, the flowers, how big the kitchen felt. Eric answered gently, never pushing, never overwhelming. Later, when the house finally settled into stillness, Eric sat alone in his study. His thoughts kept drifting back to the girl's trembling hand holding his jacket, the way she had looked at him when he promised she was safe. He didn't feel like a billionaire tonight. He felt like someone standing on the edge of something fragile. Soft steps approached. The girl appeared in the doorway, hair messy from sleep, holding a glass of milk with both hands. "Can I sit?" she asked. He nodded. She curled into the armchair across from him. "I wanted to tell you something," she said quietly. "Not because I should. Because I need to." Her voice wavered. "I'm sorry I stole from you. You didn't deserve that. I wasn't thinking. I just thought if I could get money fast, maybe I could fix things. But I didn't think what it might do to you." Eric leaned forward. "Matilda, I've had men steal millions from me with smiles and contracts. They never said sorry. You did. That means more than you know." She swallowed, eyes glistening. "Do you still trust me?" He nodded. "Trust isn't about never making mistakes. It's about what you do afterward." She let out a shaky breath. "I want to be someone you're proud of." Eric smiled softly. "You already are. You've carried more courage in the last week than most adults ever will." And for the first time since he met her, she smiled without fear. The next morning was gentle. Sunlight filtered through pale curtains as Angela sat near the window in her wheelchair, wrapped in a soft shawl. Eric brought her tea, unsure if he should sit. She gestured for him to join her. They watched the garden quietly. "I used to pray," she said suddenly. "Not for miracles. Just for one moment of kindness. One break. Then I stopped. Thought no one was listening." She turned to him, voice steady but full of truth. "Then you showed up. You didn't just save my life. You gave my daughter hope again. I can never repay that." Eric put a hand gently over hers. "You don't owe me anything." Later that day, something unexpected happened. The girl taped a hand-drawn picture to the fridge. 3 stick figures, one in a wheelchair, one curly-haired child, and one tall figure in a blue suit. Above them, in uneven handwriting, one word, home. Eric stood staring at it longer than he intended, something tightening in his chest. The house, once echoing and empty, felt alive. Days fell into a soft rhythm. Morning tea. Therapy sessions. Quiet dinners. Angela pushed herself hard, learning to move again with slow, stubborn progress. A toe twitch here, a knee jerk there. Small victories, but enough to light something inside her that had gone dark. One afternoon, resting under the pergola, Angela said, "I don't know what to call you. You're not just a man who saved my life. But I don't want words like benefactor. It sounds wrong." Eric smiled. "Then don't call me anything yet. Just wait for whatever feels true." Meanwhile, Matilda started school again at a private academy. It wasn't easy. She felt out of place among polished shoes and expensive backpacks. One day she came home quiet, shoulders tight. A boy had called her a charity case. Asked if Eric had bought her. Angela was furious, ready to storm the school herself. But Eric asked Matilda to walk with him in the garden. They sat by the koi pond. She finally let the truth spill out. "I don't want to be a burden. I'm scared people just feel sorry for me." Eric listened. Then he said, "You're not here because I pitied you. You're here because you matter. Because you and your mom showed me something worth holding on to. This isn't charity. This is family." She leaned her head against his shoulder, and for the first time since he'd met her, she didn't flinch at being loved. Weeks later, she asked if she could invite a few classmates for lunch in the garden. Angela agreed, nervous but hopeful. Eric helped set up tables, flowers, even baked lemon cake. When the guests arrived, Matilda introduced her mother proudly. "This is my mom. She's the strongest person I know." Then she turned to Eric. "And this is Eric. He's family." Later that night, Angela wheeled into the kitchen while Eric washed dishes. She looked at him for a long moment. "You stayed when you didn't have to. That's real strength. Real love." He dried his hands. "We all need saving sometimes. Doesn't mean we're broken." Angela smiled. A real smile. The kind that comes after storms. And slowly, the three of them began to look less like strangers. And more like a beginning. Healing was never a straight line. Some days Angela woke exhausted before the morning even began. Other days she managed a few inches of movement that felt like miles. But there was progress. Slow, stubborn progress. And there was something else too, something softer settling into the house like sunlight on old wood. The mornings followed a new rhythm. Angela in the sunroom by 8, Matilda brushing her hair with careful hands, Eric arriving with coffee and a quiet nod. They didn't need many words. The silence had become a language of its own, full of shared effort and a kind of fragile hope. Angela's therapy sessions grew more intense. The clinic Eric arranged was private, fully equipped, and staffed with people who treated her like a partner, not a patient. She resisted at first. She hated being lifted, adjusted, stretched. But one afternoon, her foot twitched. Then again. A tiny, stubborn spark of life returning. She didn't celebrate out loud. But Eric saw her eyes change, just a little. One day, resting outside under the wisteria, Angela looked at him and said, "I still don't know what to call you. You're not just a man who saved my life. But you're not a benefactor either. That word feels wrong. Too cold." Eric smiled. "Then don't call me anything yet. Call me whatever feels true, whenever you're ready." Angela nodded, thoughtful. "That might take a while." "I'm not going anywhere," he said. Meanwhile, Matilda was navigating her new school. Some kids were kind. Some weren't. One afternoon she came home quieter than usual. Angela noticed instantly. It wasn't until later that she admitted it. A boy had called her a charity case. Asked if the man who took her in was her new dad. The words clung to her like sticky shadows. Angela burned with anger, but also with fear. Fear that this new life wasn't real, that people would see them as temporary guests in a world they didn't belong to. That night she tried to talk to Eric, but he gently asked Matilda to walk with him in the garden. They sat by the koi pond. Matilda kept her eyes on the water. "I don't want to be a burden," she whispered. "And I don't want people thinking you did this out of pity. I want to deserve being here." Eric listened, then spoke quietly. "You're not here because I felt sorry for you. You're here because you matter. Because you and your mom showed me something worth fighting for. You belong here. Not as a guest. As family." She blinked hard, then leaned her head on his shoulder. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. The moment itself said everything. Things slowly shifted after that. Matilda smiled more. Angela pushed harder in therapy. And Eric found himself checking on them more often than he admitted. Not out of obligation. Out of something deeper. Something that had been missing from his life for a very long time. And the house, once cold and echoing, now felt full. Full of voices. Full of small sounds that meant life was happening again. Full of something that felt dangerously close to love. A new beginning was taking shape, quietly, steadily. And none of them wanted to let it go. A few weeks later, Matilda approached Eric with an idea. She wanted to invite a few classmates for lunch in the garden. Angela hesitated. She wasn't sure it was wise to open their fragile new life to outside judgment. But Matilda insisted. "If they see us here, maybe they'll see more than what we were. Maybe they'll see what we're becoming." Eric helped set everything up. He brought out tables, let Matilda choose flowers, even baked lemon cake himself. Angela dressed in a soft green dress, her hair styled by a visiting stylist. When she wheeled into the garden, sunlight touching her face, she didn't look like a patient. She looked like a woman rediscovering herself. When the children arrived, Matilda greeted them with shy pride. She introduced her mother first. "This is my mom. She's the strongest person I know." Then she turned to Eric. "And this is Eric. He's family." Eric felt something shift inside him. A word that once felt too heavy now felt right. It fit. The lunch went smoother than any of them expected. The kids laughed. They asked questions. One girl even asked Angela about her therapy, fascinated and unafraid. The walls Matilda had feared began to melt, replaced by something new. Acceptance. That night, after Matilda fell asleep, Angela rolled into the kitchen where Eric was finishing tea. She looked at him for a long moment, then said quietly, "I didn't think needing someone could feel like strength. But it does. You didn't just save us. You stayed. That matters more than anything." Eric sat beside her. "We all need saving sometimes. Doesn't mean we're broken. Just means we're human." Angela smiled, but it wasn't the small polite smile she'd used for strangers. It was real. Full. Soft around the edges. The next weekend they planted a lemon tree together. Eric dug the hole. Matilda lowered the roots. Angela held the hose steady. It wasn't a ceremony. It wasn't grand. But it meant something. Eric called it their second beginning. Angela called it grace. Matilda named the tree Lemonita. And from that day forward, the tree grew as steadily as they did. One morning, a neighbor stopped by with mail delivered to the wrong address. Matilda opened the door and said proudly, "This is my home. That's my mom. And that's Eric. He's ours." No one corrected her. No one ever would. Because somewhere between a stolen wallet and a hospital hallway, a billionaire who had everything discovered what he'd been missing. And a girl who had nothing found a place where she finally belonged. Not by chance. By choice. Sunday morning arrived with golden light drifting through the kitchen windows. The house felt warm in a way Eric had never known. Matilda sat at the table drawing on a folded piece of paper. Angela watched from her wheelchair, a book open on her lap but untouched. And Eric moved between stove and counter with a kind of quiet ease that didn't belong to his old life. He plated breakfast carefully, sliding eggs onto Angela's plate. "You hungry?" he asked. Angela gave a small smile. "More than I thought I'd be." He set another plate in front of Matilda. "Chef in training," he teased. She beamed at him. Angela watched the two of them with a warmth that reached deeper than she expected. Her body still hurt. Some days were harder than others. But right now, she felt safe. She felt seen. Later that day, Eric went outside to trim a few wandering rose branches. He wasn't good at gardening, but he liked the quiet. Matilda joined him on the bench, book in hand, legs swinging. After a moment she asked, "Are we staying here forever?" Eric paused, pruning shears in hand. "Do you want to?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah. But I wasn't sure if you wanted us to. Like, for good. Not just until things get better." Eric turned fully toward her. "Matilda, there's no until in this house. There's only if we want to build something together. And I do. Very much." She blinked back a rush of emotion, then threw her arms around him in a tight, grateful hug. A hug that spoke louder than words. That evening, after Matilda went to bed, he brought 2 mugs of tea to the living room. Angela sat near the fireplace, blanket across her lap. She opened her eyes when she heard him. "I've been thinking," he said. "I don't want you to feel like you're here because you have to be, or because I can offer things. I want you both here because this feels like home. If you want it to be." Angela looked into the fire for a long moment before answering. "When I was in the hospital, I dreamed of one quiet morning with my daughter. No bills. No panic. Just a moment to breathe. And now I have that because of you." Eric shook his head. "No. You have it because you never stopped fighting. I just showed up at the right time." Angela met his eyes. "No. You didn't walk away. That's a miracle in itself." Silence settled between them, soft and meaningful. Not heavy. Not uncertain. Something growing. The next afternoon, the three of them planted a lemon tree in the backyard. Eric dug the hole. Matilda lowered the roots. Angela held the hose steady. They worked slowly, laughing when dirt spilled everywhere. Eric called it their second beginning. Angela called it grace. Matilda called the tree Lemonita. And when a neighbor dropped off misdelivered mail, Matilda ran to the door and said proudly, "This is my home. That's my mom. And that's Eric. He's ours." This time, Eric didn't look away. He let the word ours settle into him like something he'd been waiting for his whole life. Life slowly wove itself into something steady. Not perfect. Not easy. But real. Angela continued therapy, her determination fierce even on days when her legs refused to respond. Each small twitch, each spark of movement brought new hope. She still had pain, but she no longer carried it alone. Matilda blossomed at school. She learned to draw, made a friend or two, and came home eager to tell Eric about her day. She still had moments of doubt, moments when old fears whispered that good things don't last. But every time she whispered, "Are we still staying?" Eric always answered the same. "As long as you want." Angela and Eric grew closer in the quiet spaces of the house. Small things. Shared tea. Evening conversations. The soft way she said his name. The way he checked on her without hovering. There was no rush, no pressure. Just two people rebuilding their lives side by side. One evening, during physical therapy at home, Angela managed something she hadn't in months. Her right foot moved. Just an inch. But it moved. She gasped. The therapist froze. Matilda screamed in joy. Eric felt emotion hit him like a punch. Angela covered her face, crying into her hands. Not from pain. From hope. "You did that," Eric said quietly. Angela shook her head. "We did. All of us." Progress continued. Slow. Imperfect. But forward. A few weeks later, they hosted another small gathering in the garden. This time Angela insisted on helping arrange the tables. Watching her direct Matilda with a spark in her eyes, Eric realized something. They weren't guests in his home anymore. They were shaping it. That night, after everyone left and the house grew quiet, Angela wheeled onto the patio where Eric stood looking at the city lights. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" he asked. "For choosing us. For choosing to care. For giving my daughter the kind of life I never thought she'd touch." Eric swallowed hard. "Angela, you saved me too. You both did. I just didn't know it until now." She looked at him softly. "Then maybe it's time we stop pretending we're strangers brought together by chance. Maybe this is what we were meant to become." Eric stepped closer. The air between them felt warm. Familiar. Honest. Then Matilda opened the door, laughing. "You two coming inside? Dessert's ready." Angela laughed. Eric smiled. And they followed her in. The house glowed with a warmth that wasn't money. Or charity. Or luck. It was something built from fear, from hope, from impossible choices. Something stitched together piece by three people who had lost everything. And found one another. Not by accident. By love.